I know it because I do the same thing. I don't say ow until I'm down.
Right. But that's what's important now. I mean, when you look at the landscape and the award that you're accepting here tonight, people have to know that America is all inclusive.
Yes,
it's important for stuff like that. So how important is this award for you tonight?
I'm so touched, completely blown away.
You know her as Wonder Woman, the fierce Amazon princess, the unstoppable icon who dazzled a generation and became a symbol of strength for millions. Lynda Carter didn't just play a superhero, she was one in the eyes of her fans. But what if we told you that behind the dazzling smile, behind the star-spangled costume, behind all the interviews and fanfare, Lynda Carter was quietly fighting her own battles? For decades, the public saw only the polished surface, the interviews, the magazine covers, the radiant on-screen moments. But hidden behind the camera was a reality no one expected. A world of simmering rivalries, clashing egos, and personal tensions that never made the headlines. Some co-stars she worked with left a lasting mark, not because they were friends, but because they were the ones she simply couldn't stand. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the 7 co-stars Lynda Carter reportedly hated the most, the names you never knew were tangled up in resentment, friction, and backstage drama. And trust us, this list will shock you. These aren't just unknown guest stars or minor players. Some of the names on this list are legendary figures you've admired for years. Why did the beloved Wonder Woman find herself at odds with so many? Was it about ego, creative differences, or something deeper? And how did these hidden tensions shape her career and her life, even as the world cheered her on? Stay with us, because what we're about to reveal will change the way you see Lynda Carter and the world of Hollywood forever. This isn't just a list, it's a journey into the heart of fame, friction, and the hidden cost of stardom. Adam West. Lynda Carter and Adam West, two faces that defined superhero television for an entire generation. When Adam West, forever immortalized as Batman, guest starred alongside Carter on Wonder Woman, fans expected a fun, nostalgic crossover moment. But behind the camera, things weren't quite so charming. West, by that point, was a veteran of the industry. Riding high on the fame and cultural cachet his Batman role had earned him in the 1960s. His arrival on the Wonder Woman set was marked by a kind of larger-than-life swagger, a man used to owning the room, basking in his own reputation, and working at his own pace. For Lynda Carter, though, the dynamics were much more delicate. She was the face of Wonder Woman, carrying the show's weight on her shoulders, working tirelessly to maintain its quality, and proving herself in a male-dominated industry that often underestimated female leads. To Carter, West's laid-back attitude, often laced with jokes and lighthearted improvisation, wasn't just playful. It was disruptive. According to insiders, Carter grew frustrated with how West's energy shifted the tone on set, turning tightly planned scenes into chaotic playgrounds that sometimes required extra takes or last-minute adjustments. But the tension wasn't one-sided. West reportedly found Carter a bit too serious, too locked into her role, and unwilling to bend for the sake of fun. He had been in the industry long enough to know how to loosen up, and Carter, in his eyes, was still learning how to balance professionalism with playfulness. The two stars were fundamentally different. West's ego and Carter's intensity were like oil and water. Crew members would later recall the subtle signs: Carter's tight smile when West cracked yet another off-script joke, the way she would quietly retreat between scenes rather than engage in his playful banter, and the slightly stiff chemistry that hovered just beneath their on-screen interactions. Though no explosive argument ever made headlines, the air was thick with tension during West's guest appearance, and by the time filming wrapped, both stars were likely relieved to part ways. In later years, Carter spoke only vaguely about challenging guest stars, never naming names, but among fans and crew alike, many suspected that Adam West was near the top of that list. It was a meeting of two legends, Batman and Wonder Woman, that fans adored, but one that, behind the scenes, left a trail of quiet frustration and sharp-edged memories. Lyle Waggoner. To audiences, Lynda Carter and Lyle Waggoner were the perfect on-screen pair. The dazzling Wonder Woman and her dashing confidant, Steve Trevor. Their chemistry lit up televisions across the country, and fans loved the balance they brought. Carter's radiant strength and Waggoner's charming support. But off-screen, things weren't always as smooth as they appeared. Behind the polished scenes and the staged photos, there was tension, a subtle but persistent friction that grew over the years they worked together. Lyle Waggoner was no newcomer when Wonder Woman began. Having already built a name for himself on The Carol Burnett Show and various television projects, Waggoner brought a sense of experience, and some say quiet entitlement, to the Wonder Woman set. Carter, meanwhile, was a rising star, determined to break out from just being a beautiful face and prove herself as a capable, serious lead. That difference in career stages sparked an undercurrent of tension that few fans knew about, but many insiders quietly observed. According to crew members, Waggoner sometimes struggled with the show's growing focus on Carter. As Wonder Woman became more popular, scripts and promotional materials shifted more and more toward Carter's character, leaving Waggoner in the background. Though he was professional on set, sources say there was a sense of simmering jealousy, a frustration that his once central role was being eclipsed by the unstoppable rise of his co-star. Carter, for her part, reportedly became impatient with Waggoner's subtle attempts to reclaim screen space, feeling it distracted from the core message of the show, a powerful female superhero leading her own story. Their working styles also clashed. Carter was deeply committed, often hyper-focused, on making sure the show delivered its best. She cared about details, tone, and consistency. Waggoner, on the other hand, was known for his laid-back charm, preferring to keep things light and easygoing. What fans saw as effortless on-screen chemistry was, in reality, sometimes the result of tightly managed professionalism. Two actors keeping their cool while privately drifting further apart. There was no public blow-up, no tabloid scandal, no dramatic walk-off. But insiders who watched the pair interact over the years noticed the distance. Fewer casual conversations between takes, less backstage laughter, more clipped exchanges. When the show eventually ended, it wasn't just the end of a TV series. It was the quiet closing of a working relationship that had run its course. To this day, fans look back on Carter and Waggoner as a golden duo, but behind the scenes, it was a partnership held together less by friendship and more by shared obligation, each knowing they had to make it work, even when they weren't exactly on the same page. Debra Winger. When Debra Winger stepped onto the Wonder Woman set to play Drusilla, better known as Wonder Girl, fans were thrilled at the idea of seeing a younger, spirited counterpart to Lynda Carter's regal heroine. It seemed like a natural fit. Two talented women sharing the screen, embodying the power and charm of Amazon warriors. But behind the camera, things were far less harmonious. In fact, insiders say the tension between Carter and Winger grew so intense that it left a mark on both of their careers. Debra Winger was young, ambitious, and hungry to prove herself. Even early in her career, she was known for being fiery, outspoken, and determined not to be overshadowed. For Carter, who was still solidifying her place as a serious actress, and not just a pretty face in a superhero costume, Winger's attitude felt like an intrusion. Carter had worked hard to command the set's respect, and now here was a young upstart drawing attention and testing boundaries. According to crew members, Winger quickly became frustrated with the limited scope of her character. She wanted more storylines, more depth, and more time in the spotlight. But Carter, laser-focused on carrying the entire show on her back, reportedly had little patience for Winger's impatience. Their personalities were fundamentally mismatched. Carter was graceful, polished, and conscious of the show's larger message. Winger, on the other hand, brought an unpredictable, sometimes rebellious energy that clashed with Carter's more measured approach. Behind the scenes, there were frequent cold silences, clipped conversations, and moments when Carter would quietly retreat rather than engage with Winger's rising frustrations. While they maintained professionalism on camera, the backstage mood was anything but warm. Eventually, the tension became too much. Winger left the show after only a few appearances, reportedly fed up with what she felt was a restrictive role and a chilly environment. For Carter, sources say Winger's departure came as something of a relief, not because she wanted her gone, but because the atmosphere on set noticeably lightened after Winger exited. Still, neither star walked away from the experience unscathed. Winger's rapid rise in film afterward, with acclaimed roles in Urban Cowboy, An Officer, and A Gentleman, and Terms of Endearment, only amplified the bittersweet nature of their past. To this day, both actresses have largely avoided discussing each other in public interviews, leaving fans to speculate about what really went wrong behind the scenes. But those close to the production know the truth. It was a collision of two strong, talented women, each fighting to carve out space in a show and an industry that didn't always have room for both. David Hedison. When David Hedison guest starred on Wonder Woman, the production team expected a smooth collaboration. Hedison was a respected television actor, known for his roles in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea and appearances in James Bond films. He brought with him a reputation for intensity, dedication, and a deep commitment to his craft. But what should have been a polished, professional encounter turned out to be one of the more uncomfortable moments in Lynda Carter's career. Hedison's methodical, almost brooding approach to acting clashed almost immediately with Carter's clear, focused, and collaborative style. Hedison was known to come to set with his own ideas, suggestions, and sometimes forceful opinions about how scenes should be played. For Carter, who bore the responsibility of carrying the entire series on her shoulders, this wasn't just challenging, it was exhausting. She valued efficiency, mutual respect, and a kind of unspoken teamwork to get through the long, grueling filming days. Hedison's presence disrupted that balance, introducing a layer of tension that made every scene feel heavier than it should have been. Crew members have recalled the way Carter would retreat into herself between takes when Hedison was around. Normally open and gracious with her co-stars, she reportedly became guarded, careful with her words, and noticeably stiff. Hedison, on his end, seemed equally frustrated, feeling that Carter wasn't receptive to his deeper, more layered suggestions about the material. To him, she appeared too focused on the surface, the action, the image, the delivery, rather than the emotional currents he wanted to explore. By the time they wrapped, it was clear to those on set that neither actor would be eager to work together again. While no public remarks were ever made, whispers circulated among those close to the production that Carter had found Hedison's approach overbearing, and Hedison had left the set unimpressed by what he saw as her resistance to artistic risk. It wasn't a dramatic falling out, but rather a slow-burning mismatch of values and methods that left both parties cold. For fans, the episode itself remains just another guest star moment in the long run of Wonder Woman, a blip in the larger legacy. But for Carter, it was reportedly one of the more difficult shoots she endured, a reminder that even in the glamorous world of television, personality clashes and creative friction can turn an ordinary week of work into a battle of wills. Alan Alda. Alan Alda and Lynda Carter never worked together on a scripted project, but that didn't stop tension from brewing between them in the highly visible, pressure-filled world of celebrity events, charity galas, and public appearances. Alda, the beloved star of MASH, had a reputation for being sharp-witted, charismatic, and effortlessly charming. He dominated every room he entered, not in a loud or aggressive way, but with a quick mind and a gift for captivating conversations. For many, he was the life of the party, the brilliant actor who could make everyone laugh and lean in. But for Lynda Carter, Alda's charm reportedly came with a price. Sources close to Carter have said that while she respected Alda's talent, she often found his off-screen personality difficult to tolerate. Unlike her graceful, poised public demeanor, Alda's presence was big, sometimes overwhelming, and often left others, especially women, struggling to get a word in. During industry events, Alda would often steer conversations toward himself, regaling groups with long stories, clever observations, or subtle jabs that could leave his conversation partners scrambling to keep up. Carter, who preferred thoughtful exchanges and careful reflection, reportedly felt bulldozed by Alda's relentless energy. Behind the scenes, those who witnessed their interactions describe a woman trying to politely hold her ground while a man effortlessly commanded the spotlight. Carter, already navigating the pressures of being one of the few female leads in a male-dominated industry, reportedly grew tired of Alda's tendency to dismiss or interrupt her contributions. While she maintained her professionalism and never publicly criticized him, close friends and industry insiders say she would quietly express frustration after events, venting that Alda's arrogance, masked as humor and intellect, was a barrier rather than a bridge. It's worth noting that Alda likely didn't even realize the tension he was creating. To many, his conversational style was just part of his personality, quick, clever, and always on. But for Carter, whose career was built on a careful balance of strength and grace, Alda's overpowering presence felt less like entertainment and more like a subtle undermining of her voice. Their occasional encounters at award shows and charity functions reportedly left her drained, eager to step out of his orbit and return to spaces where she could reclaim her own authority. Fans who look back at photos of Alda and Carter together, smiling for the cameras, standing shoulder to shoulder, might never guess at the quiet strain beneath the surface. But as those close to Carter will tell you, sometimes the most challenging relationships aren't marked by explosive arguments or public feuds. They're defined by the slow, steady wear of clashing personalities over time. Ted Shackelford. Ted Shackelford, a recognizable face from his long-running role on Knots Landing, once shared the screen with Lynda Carter in a television project that, at first glance, seemed like a promising match. Both were established TV stars, both brought their own loyal fan bases, and both were expected to bring charisma and chemistry to their scenes together. But as the cameras rolled and the days stretched on, it became clear that their working styles clashed in ways that neither had anticipated, creating an atmosphere on set that grew increasingly tense. Carter, known for her meticulous preparation and intense focus, approached every project with a deep sense of responsibility. As someone who had carried an entire television franchise as Wonder Woman, she understood the pressures of leading a production and ensuring that the entire cast and crew worked smoothly together. She valued punctuality, discipline, and mutual respect, believing that professionalism was the glue that held a successful show together. Shackelford, on the other hand, came with a reputation for being more relaxed, improvisational, and willing to play things loose. He was charismatic, charming, and confident in his ability to bring moments to life without over-rehearsing or sticking too rigidly to the script. For Carter, that easygoing attitude wasn't just a minor annoyance. It was a source of mounting frustration. According to those on set, she felt that Shackelford's unpredictability slowed things down, caused unnecessary retakes, and undermined the structured workflow she worked hard to maintain. Meanwhile, Shackelford reportedly found Carter's intensity stifling, describing her in private conversations as someone too rigid, too perfectionistic, and unwilling to let the scene breathe. Where she saw his looseness as unprofessional, he saw her seriousness as joyless. The friction grew steadily over the course of the production. Crew members noticed the coldness between takes. Carter, keeping to herself, focused on reviewing lines or preparing for the next scene, while Shackelford often chatted with crew or joked with minor cast members. Their scenes together required multiple takes, not because of technical mistakes, but because the emotional energy between them felt off, strained, or disconnected. By the time the project wrapped, both actors were reportedly eager to move on. Carter, always careful not to air grievances in public, never spoke about the experience directly, but insiders recall that she made it clear she wouldn't be eager to work with Shackelford again. For Shackelford, the feeling was likely mutual. Though their names remain linked in fan memories, the reality was that their brief collaboration left little desire for a repeat performance. It's a reminder that in Hollywood, even the most promising on-paper pairings can fizzle when personalities and work ethics collide. And sometimes, the most memorable lessons come not from fiery on-set confrontations, but from the quiet realization that two stars simply weren't meant to share the same stage. Dean Cain. Dean Cain and Lynda Carter two legendary faces of superhero television, separated by decades but bound by a shared legacy. On paper, they should have been allies, even friends. Carter, the iconic Wonder Woman of the 1970s, and Kane, the beloved Superman from Lois and Clark in the 1990s. When they crossed paths at fan conventions, Comic-Cons, and superhero panels, it seemed like the perfect superhero reunion. But behind the scenes, the mood was far less heroic. According to insiders and event organizers, Carter and Kane's interactions were marked by cool politeness at best and quiet disdain at worst. From the start, Kane brought a confident, sometimes brash energy to public events. He was popular with fans, always ready to share stories, crack jokes, and dive into long anecdotes about his time as Superman. But for Carter, who valued careful, thoughtful exchanges with fans and colleagues, Kane's tendency to dominate conversations reportedly grated on her nerves. At panels meant to celebrate the legacy of multiple superhero icons, Kane would allegedly steer the focus back to himself, sharing personal highlights or comparing his Superman run to modern adaptations. Carter, always gracious on the surface, reportedly felt that Kane's ego left little room for meaningful dialogue about Wonder Woman's place in the superhero pantheon, a topic she cared deeply about. Event staff and insiders have described moments where Carter, between panel sessions, would quietly retreat backstage, avoiding long conversations with Kane whenever possible. Though they were always polite on stage, smiling for photos, exchanging a few scripted comments, the real atmosphere was noticeably chilly. Fans who paid close attention might have picked up on Carter's forced smile or subtle body language, but most were too caught up in the excitement of seeing two TV superheroes side by side. What made the tension even sharper was the contrast in generational attitudes. Carter, a trailblazer who had to fight for respect in an era when female-led superhero shows were a rarity, reportedly found Kane's casual, sometimes self-centered approach dismissive of the historical weight behind Wonder Woman. Kane, meanwhile, seemed content to ride the wave of nostalgic Superman fandom, rarely engaging with deeper conversations about representation or cultural legacy, topics Carter had spent years championing. While neither star has ever spoken publicly about their feelings toward each other, those who have worked with them behind the scenes suggest that Carter was quietly relieved when events didn't place them side by side. For Carter, every appearance was an opportunity to honor Wonder Woman's enduring impact and the fans who kept that legacy alive. For Kane, it was often just another gig, another panel, another chance to reminisce about his time in the red cape. And while fans may forever link their names as TV superhero royalty, the truth is that behind the smiles and photo ops, Lynda Carter and Dean Cain never truly saw eye to eye. Hollywood has always been a world of dazzling smiles, glamorous partnerships, and carefully curated public images. But as we've seen through the quiet tensions and simmering frustrations in Lynda Carter's career, what happens behind the scenes is rarely as perfect as what's projected to the world. Carter, immortalized as the original Wonder Woman, has long been celebrated for her strength, beauty, and grace. But behind that graceful exterior, she faced a host of co-stars who challenged her patience, tested her professionalism, and left her quietly fuming long after the cameras stopped rolling. From Adam West's playful arrogance that disrupted her tightly run set, to Lyle Waggoner's quiet jealousy over being eclipsed, to Deborah Winger's rebellious ambition that clashed with Carter's controlled presence, the list of tensions is longer and more complex than many fans ever knew. Add to that the creative friction with David Hedison, the social strain with Alan Alda, the mismatched work styles with Ted Shackelford, and the ego clashes with Dean Cain, and you begin to see a fuller picture of what Carter's journey through fame truly looked like. What's striking is that Carter rarely, if ever, spoke publicly about these strained relationships. She understood the unspoken rules of Hollywood. Keep the public smiling, keep the fans engaged, and never let personal grievances overshadow the magic of the characters you've been trusted to embody. But just because she stayed silent doesn't mean the tensions weren't real. Behind every iconic actress is a history, not just of triumphs, but of moments when she had to grit her teeth, bite her tongue, and push through personal discomfort to deliver the performances that fans still remember decades later. And that brings us to you, the audience. Were you surprised by these behind-the-scenes revelations? Did any of these names catch you off guard? Maybe you've always thought of Carter's world as flawless, or maybe you sensed, even as a fan, that no career shines without a few dark corners. Either way, we want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Who do you think was most at fault in these stories? Were these simple personality clashes, or do they reveal something deeper about Hollywood's pressures and expectations? If you enjoyed this dive into the untold side of Lynda Carter's career, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more behind-the-scenes stories, Hollywood secrets, and celebrity insights you won't hear anywhere else. And remember, no matter how perfect the image, there's always another side to the story, and we're here to bring it to you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.